So I became a lawyer because in the 1980s, my uncle was in a band, which sounds crazy. He was in a band called Musical Youth. They had a #1 hit called Pass the Dutchie. And I found out about this when I was 18. And the reason I found out is because my uncle was explaining to me that he didn't get any royalties for this track, which didn't really make any sense to me. It turned out that he had a huge legal dispute with his lawyers. And over time, I became quite angry that people he was supposed to trust let him down. And that was one of the things that inspired me to really work much harder than I would have at university when I was thinking about becoming a lawyer. But once I got there, I realized really quickly that the legal industry is really expensive. By the time I was 24, my parents couldn't afford an hour of my time. Lawyers at the top law firms charge hundreds of pounds for 1 hour of advice. To send an email would cost you hundreds of pounds. It just didn't sit well with me that world-class legal advice was so expensive. I became obsessed with how can we use technology to make access to the best legal advice cheaper without compromising the quality. And it took me a lot of time before I realized that the core problem was contracts. Contracts are like a plumber's hammer. It's the core instrument for every lawyer. And so I thought, if we can use machine learning and software to help us make and agree contracts, then we can make it available to everybody. So I want the team at Robin AI to be two things. I want them to be creative because we're trying to do something that hasn't really been done before. We're trying to change an industry that has been around for a very long time. And to do that, we need people who are brave, creative, willing to experiment, and sometimes experiments fail. So you have to be resilient and willing to embrace constant change. And the second thing is I want the team at Robin to be really, really, really diverse. You can't solve the hardest problems by approaching them the same way as everybody else, by thinking the same way. We have a culture of conflict, constructive disagreement, and usually that's what leads to the best outcomes. So we want people from all sorts of backgrounds to be reflected in the team. I would say the culture at Robin is about transparency. We want everyone in the business to understand the whole business. So software engineers need to understand how our machine learning works, and our machine learning engineers need to understand our sales numbers, and our operations team need to understand how the software works. And part of the reason for that is that every employee at the company has equity. They are owners of the business. It's not just me. We encourage everybody to take equity when they join. We let them take more over time, because we think that the best way to achieve the results we want is to be open, to be honest, to include everybody in the campaign that we're on. Say second, it's about autonomy. We work as a team, but at the same time, we realize we're dealing with very, very complicated problems, and none of us have the answers. So we encourage people to be independent thinkers, to structure their day the way they want to have clear objectives, but find their own ways to solve them. So we like having people who are really autonomous. And I'd say the final thing is that we are a learning environment. Because nobody is an expert in every domain that we need to be experts in, we are constantly teaching each other. And that's one of the most thrilling things about the company is we are learning every single day. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, to be completely honest, when you approach a new domain that you know nothing about. But I would say our culture is one where everybody is able to learn new things all the time and become experts in multiple fields over time. So at Robin, we're trying to do something really, really difficult. If you think about it, the way businesses have been agreeing contracts hasn't changed since the 90s. And that's partly because it's really hard to make new technologies that make it faster, simpler, but at the same time protect people from risks when it comes to contracting technology. And so everything we're trying to do is largely uncharted territory. Problems that haven't been solved before using the latest technologies, both in software and machine learning. And sometimes that's scary. At the same time, it's really exciting. We're approaching problems that haven't been solved before, and that means you're constantly stretching yourself. You're constantly learning. There aren't really wrong answers. We're trying to find new solutions, and that means that you get lots of support, you get lots of room to experiment and fail without feeling like you've made a mistake. And you get to be in a place where if we succeed, you really have made an impact on the world in a way that previously people didn't think was possible.